Hey guys, David here and welcome to another Dark Art Workshop video. Today I'm going to talk more in detail about the PolyMap system, give you a couple of updates, what has happened since its launch and where we will proceed with it. I'm also going to go a bit more into detail on the workflow, show you how I set it up on the computer, the functions of the plugin, as well as show you some additional demos that you guys requested. Now, the initial response for the PolyMap video was absolutely breathtaking. I was hoping that the video would perform well and not just get buried, but what actually happened was just completely insane, reaching 100,000 views in less than a week. That has not happened on this channel before. This also meant that we got a tremendous amount of super great feedback. There's well over 1,000 comments now on the video, and very quickly over 1,000 people have filled out the feedback form, at which point I decided to close it to just kind of not overwhelm it too much. But this means that we have a pretty good idea now about what is needed, what you guys are looking for, and what we can do better. That's also kind of why this video took a bit longer. I had some really good talks with other people in the industry. Quite a lot of people reached out directly to me to talk about how the system could be used, what they would like to use it for, as well as some other really good exchanges. Now, initially, this video was just supposed to be a bit more of a deep dive, looking closer at the system, giving you a bit more details, but instead it kind of slightly pivoted what I want to do and give you more of an outlook into what this will become. Now, if you want more of a deep dive on the actual hardware itself, I still recommend you to just go check out the written article that I have on my website. I'm not going to really talk much about the details of the current hardware, at least not intentionally. I might mention it by explaining how the new one will be different. But I will give you a lot more details on the software toolchain side. And I think that's also where we're going to start off before we then move to the outlook. Now, one thing I did not really mention much in the original video is that the PolyMap system is theoretically compatible with both Windows and Mac. However, in its current iteration, if you want to actually play it live, it only really works on Mac. The reason for that is simply latency. Somehow on Windows, because you have to use Audio for All in order to have both the 64 input channel as well as some sort of output channel that is separate, this somewhere introduces some indeterminate amount of latency, and you get somewhere between 40 and 200 milliseconds of latency, which is completely unusable for actually live playing. For editing, it works fine. Then you can simply just not have any inputs connected and work on the already recorded PolyMap tracks, and then it works perfectly fine. Performance is still a little bit better on Mac, but I have been using it on Windows without any issues. For playing live though, on Mac it works great. The latency is extremely low and actually lower than I measured on my PreSonus USB audio interface. So it feels absolutely super responsive. The plugin is responsive and doesn't bog down at all. You can easily have many instances of the plugin open without it kind of taking over the system too much. Alright, so here we have a brand new clean Reaper project, and I'm just going to quickly show you how I set up the project and what you kind of need to do in order to be able to use the PolyMap system. Now, the first thing we want to do is create a new track here, and then this track will be our kind of input track, so it needs to be 64 channels. And this right here is why, unfortunately, the PolyMap plugin at the moment is only really compatible with Reaper, because in most DAW you cannot simply make a 64 track channel. Then for this one, I'm also going to turn off master send, as I don't want to have any of that. Now, then I'm going to do a new send to a new track, because we haven't created one yet, and just sending a stereo signal, so channel 1 and 2 to the 1 and 2 on track 2. That will be where we then have our output. So on our input track, we then add the PolyMap Studio plugin, and here it opens up, and then let's just select some sort of preset for now. And then this takes all of these 64 inputs and then creates a stereo mix down. We close this down here, Then now that we set up the send, the stereo mixdown gets sent to this one. So let's add an amp sim on here. I'm just using the neural DSP archetype Nolly here, but you can of course use any kind of amp sim that you like. And let's do a clean sound for now. Now for demonstration purposes, instead of playing live, it is a lot easier if you like kind of doing the playing live and the editing separately. So I'm just dragged in recording from before, and then here you can see it looks quite crazy having the 64 tracks here, and you need to zoom in fairly far in order to be able to see anything. You might even have to adjust your zoom settings that it even allows you to zoom in that far. Now, if you've listened to the demo video, this is probably sounding familiar. Now, for now, we can also go ahead and turn off the reverb on the amp sim, so we're just working directly with a clean track. So bringing up the PolyMap plugin again here, let me make a quick loop here so we can work with the same sample all the time. Then enable looping. And then in here, you can adjust everything. I already quickly showed you here the presets. I've just created a couple, and you can also go back and forth between them. Then down here, this one is if you're playing live on Windows. Unfortunately, with audio drivers on Windows, for some reason they get all jumbled up. So you might have to like have your strings out of order if you're pulling it up in Windows. So you can just reorder them here if necessary. If you're working on Mac, where it works a lot better anyhow, then you can completely ignore this. Control mode, you can choose between the manual control mode here or between virtual position, which I'll show you in a second, where you can select the virtual pickup positions. Let's stick with manual for now. Then blend mode fully additive is kind of the default way. That just, if you add additional pickups, it just adds that to the signal. If you have a lot of pickups active per string, then sometimes it makes more sense to normalize each string. So that just kind of normalizes it according to how many pickups are active on that string. Normalize across strings is not really useful for anything. That just normalizes the entire signal according to how many things are active. Volume compensation here makes sure that the neck pickup is roughly the same volume as the bridge pickup. Although, of course, because the vibration amplitude at the neck is a lot higher, the output of that pickup is also higher. So without any compensation, the neck pickups would always be louder than the bridge pickups. Now, depending on exactly how you play and everything, it's not perfect, the compensation, but it gets you very close. Then finally, noise reduction, just, well, that's what it says. The input applies a noise reduction filter, which makes it a lot more pleasant to work with. You can also assign MIDI inputs to any of the controls. So to do this, you just right-click on anything. For example, let's say we want to turn this on and off with MIDI. Then we click here, MIDI Learn. And then if you have any MIDI devices connected to your computer, you just press use whatever control you want to use, and then this gets assigned. And then you can clear all MIDI mappings here as well as showing any active MIDI mappings. Then down here at the bottom, we have the output filter. That is to kind of emulate more regular pickups. Now, like a regular passive pickups might have a low pass filter with a cutoff frequency like anywhere between like 2000 to maybe 3000 hertz. So I like to keep it roughly in that range. That just kind of takes off the harsh high end. You can, of course, also open that up and get a more dynamic sound, but you also tend to get a bit more noise. The high pass I'm not using much, especially on an 8-string where we do want to get very low, but it's there if you want to use it. And you can also play around with the quality factor. A lot of passive pickups have a bit of a resonance around the cutoff frequency, so you can add a little bit. And if you are used to like seeing border plots for filters, you can head over to the spectrum visualizer And in gray, you actually get like a border plot visualization of the filter coefficients. And if you are playing, you also get like the spectrum visualization of the channels, and you can select which channels are active here. And you can also freeze it if you want to look at it a bit more closely. Now, one thing you want to make sure is that your amp sim is actually in stereo mode. I had it in mono mode and was wondering why the panning didn't work. The more you know. So now if you can see that on this preset, actually the bridge is a bit panned. And we're also able to see here kind of the volume levels of what is going on, and you can adjust the volume of each one of the individual pickups here. Pan them left to right, of course. You can invert them here. And then if you, let's say, have two active, one of them inverted, then that makes them out of phase. And if you want to not have them fully out of, like, not have them like fully essentially cancel each other, then you can simply reduce the volume of one of them. In the virtual pickup control, things get a little bit simpler. Now, just changing which tab you're looking at does not actually change which one is active. So you have to change that here on the side. That's so that you can kind of look at both. The easiest way is just to click here on link. And that way you can move all of the pickup positions at once. And then per one out of the strings, so one is the lowest string, and here you can adjust the volume and pan each one of the strings. And there you go. That's kind of a basic overview of how to work with the PolyMap system. Now, we're using like a recorded version here now, but if you simply enable monitoring and have it hooked up, the same thing also works live, of course. Now, if you want to do the effect of kind of splitting your strings in the two different amps, then the way this works right now is that we simply have to create multiple instances of it. So we can even just take both of these tracks, simply duplicate them, and then I believe this should have also updated the send properly, hopefully. Oh, it duplicated them like that. I guess that's fine. So let's descend to track 4. Let's maybe rename this. And then in here, let's switch to preset. So now we have this amp sim is clean, this one is distortion. And then here we have the source for the clean. So if we go in here, oh wow. And unfortunately, this tends to happen sometimes as well. Sometimes when you switch presets or do something else, things can just simply crash. Now, I don't think I even saved this project, so we might have to actually start over. All right, so I've set up everything again. Now, it definitely pays to save often with Reaper. And actually, let me save this project real quick. You can set up autosave in the Reaper options. I would recommend setting that up. Otherwise, you might put a bunch of work in and then it suddenly crashes and you lose everything. Now, I found that the easiest way to work with kind of all of different plugins and like different instances is to just have 20 monitors so we can actually have everything open next to each other. But since I can't really screen record 20 monitors or have that many, just have to cover stuff up for now. So here we have the PolyMap Studio for the distortion channel, and I just linked the pickups here. Let's maybe put that to pickup position 2. That roughly sounds like a regular kind of regular bridge pickup, I guess. And here I'm also gonna turn down the low pass filter a bit lower. And then here we, let's say, just want the bottom 3 strings. So for the top ones, I can simply turn the volume down here. Now, instead of using virtual position, I could have also just used manual control and enabled the 3 pickups here. That does essentially the same thing, just here I can more easily play with it later. Then on the clean, we'll do the opposite of disabling the top 3 here, the bottom 3. And then I'm also going to link these ones here, and let's maybe put those a bit closer to the bridge. And why not, let's also fan them out a bit. So now we're at the same same spot in the song again as before. So first there's a lot happening on the higher strings, and then it kind of starts on the low ones. And clearly we did not set up something correctly. Turns out it helps if you actually set up your routing correctly again. As you can see, I'm very much not a professional audio engineer. I'm just kind of learning it as I'm going. But now I think it should sound a bit better. Now, one thing you can hear here in the beginning especially, it's this kind of noise that you hear. And that's because when we are playing on only the high strings, the lower strings are still somewhat vibrating. And if you have a high gain sound, you will get some weird artifacting there. You can, for example, if you know where in your song this happens, you can simply cut the song so that it doesn't overlap. Or otherwise, another option is to go into the amp settings here and just kind of have the noise gate even higher. That should hopefully fix it. As you can see, putting the noise gate this high is not necessarily ideal, but I guess you could also just pay closer attention while playing to not have those strings vibrating as much, or maybe, I don't know, use a fret wrap or something. And then here is kind of the end song that you also heard. And then, like, once you have stuff overlapping, like, you don't notice that anymore, the weird kind of effects are happening, as there is always some distorted sound going on anyhow. Now this wraps up just this quick little demonstration of the workflow, and now I'm going to show you a couple of requested different sound combinations. Now first, let's start off with a little bit of a baseline of this part of the riff. Just have like the second position activated, just a single row for all of them, and we're listening to the distorted sound. Now, what a lot of you actually missed is just kind of essentially a standard humbucker. So now we'll have 2 rows active, so that essentially is like a humbucker. Now it's not actually humbucking because the magnets and the coils are all oriented the same way, but you get the kind of wider pickup pattern of a humbucker. And this is if the humbucker is even closer to the bridge. Now this is even closer than most humbuckers are actually placed to the bridge. We can also have it spread out a little bit more. And how about a triple bucker? Now you can see that this is almost starting to clip, so I might actually want to choose the blend mode to normalize each string, to just kind of bring it down a little bit. Now this would be, I guess, a standard middle switch position if you have a two-humbucker guitar. And I hope that these couple examples just give you a few more things to listen to. Now, one effect that got requested quite often is if you could use this system to distort the strings individually. Now, the theory behind this is that if you play a chord on the strings and you distort the output signal of the mixed chord, you get a lot of intermodulation between the different strings notes, which kind of creates an ugly chord that doesn't really sound good and has a lot more kind of things going on. If instead you distort each string individually, you don't get any of those intermodulation products, simply the distorted string, and then this should sound better. Now, to replicate this, I've taken a part of the song here, and then for one, we have simply up here, that is the plugin with one row active, and then that goes to an amp sim. And then the second option is that I have replicated 8 tracks here. These each all also have a plugin. And if I move it over here, you can see that only one pickup is active. So that essentially just means that these are individual strings. And then the reason why I didn't just copy the sound from that pickup is so that I can still have the output filter here active, as that influences the sound as well. So here we get the 8 strings, and then those I send to 8 separate amp sim tracks. And in here I have the archetype Nolly plugin, and I'm using the Juicy Jug preset here, which is a very high gain preset. So let's hear how the different sounds between mixing everything first and then going into one instance of Juicy Jug, or having each thing separately into 8 separate instances of this and then mixing the output. So first you'll hear the source coming in to directly the amp sim. Now let me mute the output of this amp sim, and instead I will activate the 8 individual amp sims. Now, I personally, just hearing them after each other, couldn't tell a huge difference, to be honest. I was actually expecting more, especially on the kind of chords played together on the higher strings. Though it's possible that in some other instances of playing, maybe some more harmonizing or something, it will be more of a bigger difference. But here I found it to be quite minimal. Now, of course, quite a few of you also came over from the Cycfi community, and yes, I did talk to Joel there slightly beforehand, and now afterwards we had a good video call, and discussed the future collaborations and how the system can be improved and how we can work together to make it even better. A lot of exciting stuff is there still to come, but we will see that as it unfolds. I have also had the chance now to play around with the Ascend VPU. That's the plugin that Joel wrote for the Cycfi pickup that essentially allows you to virtually change the pickup position that I can change physically. And I think the results of those was really interesting, so I'll have some comparisons here for you. Now, what this plugin is trying to do is essentially a virtual version of what the PolyMap system does in hardware. You just feed it the signal of a polyphonic pickup at the bridge, and then you can virtually reposition your pickup that then gets output. Now, the way that you work with the Ascend VPU plugin, you need separate tracks for each one of the strings. This is great because it means it's compatible with all DAWs. However, it's a bit more cumbersome to set up. So you need eight separate instances, but you can link the settings together of them. So if I move the pickup here, it will be moved in all separate instances. But that's why I couldn't directly apply that onto my tracks, but had to kind of explode it out and take out the tracks from like the bridge pickup. All right, so now with the correct tracks muted and unmuted, if I play this little part of the song and then mute the pickup, you can hear how it sounds differently. And the really interesting part here is that, of course, you cannot just move it between like the bridge and neck pickup, but you can move it all the way up the neck as well. Now, one thing that is not implemented here in this plugin is that the volume does change as you move along the strings. In the PolyMap, I have the like volume compensation to kind of keep it a bit more equal, but that's not available here. Now, with this quick demo of the plugin itself out of the way, I think what is much more interesting is to compare how the virtual kind of pickups compare to the real ones. So if I open up the real one here and let's use the virtual pickup position, that makes it simpler. I'm gonna link them together. Now in the virtual pickup plugin, the VPU, the input is the bridge pickup, and then I can reposition it anywhere to the output. So let's see how the output all the way at the neck compares to the virtual neck position. I'm going to make sure that I set the low pass filter the same. The kind of filter architecture that I implemented is the same as is implemented in the Ascend VPU plugin as well. Now, unfortunately, while you can input like the exact measurements of where your pickups are, there is no kind of indication of like the exact position where you put the virtual pickup. Now, just based on the fretboard position here, I think like my bridge pickup on the PolyMap system would be roughly here. Let's first listen to the original. So I'm gonna mute this and unmute the original. Now let's swap over. If there's any volume difference, I'll just fix that in post. Now, I find that this does sound quite different. Also, this is now on like on the lower strings where I found the difference a bit bigger. But before we look at a different sequence, let's try out another position. I'm gonna like here is all the way bridge, so let's try roughly halfway in between the neck and the bridge. In the PolyMap plugin, that would be, let's say, position 4. So once again, first the real one. And now the emulated one. All right, now let me find a different part of the song where more of the higher strings are active. All right, let's do the same comparison again. Once again, starting with the original, like real pickups. And now the virtual ones. I think that is actually sounding a bit closer. Let's try all the way bridge position again. The physical pickups. And the virtual ones. If anything, I feel like the virtual ones have a bit more high-end still in there, a bit more of the kind of string attack clang sound. Maybe that is because my bridge pickup is extremely close to the bridge, so there is even more of that, but it's just kind of part of it. But overall, if we just kind of qualitatively, instead of A/B comparing, kind of see how the Ascend VPU plugin sound, you can really get the same effect essentially of like kind of changing your sound. So I could see in the future that maybe we use a similar technology that if you have only 2 rows of pickups, you can still use virtual ones anywhere in between and possibly even up the neck. And if we have 2, like one by the bridge and one by the neck, the model could be even more accurate, I think. However, that is just ideas for the future. Now with this out of the way, I want to go ahead and answer some of the most frequently asked questions. One of them, of course, was price, and I don't really have a good answer for that right now. What I can tell you is that in the current iteration, just the material cost is that of a fairly high-end guitar. So if we actually want to make some sort of profit on it, it would have to sell it for maybe 5 grand, something like that, which would be quite unreasonable. Now, of course, by reducing the number of pickups, choosing cheaper components, we didn't really choose components based on their price, because at the university, just for a prototype, the price was not that much of an issue. So we just chose whatever we had the highest expectations of working and was the easiest to implement. By re-engineering everything slightly to maybe choose cheaper ADC chips, not use MADI where you need a $700 external interface to actually use it, stuff like that, the price can be brought down quite a bit. Now it's still not going to be a cheap system. The kind of hopeful goal end price would be that the system starts below $1,000 for a simpler system, and then if you want more pickup rows and additional other things, it will go up to maybe $2,000. But that is without any guarantees, just kind of the price we would like to end up at. Whether we actually do or not remains to be seen. Then the second one is, can I have it now? And the answer to that is no. And in a way, the fact that so many people were immediately interested in it makes the wait even longer. Because instead of just kind of fixing up some minor things and then releasing it as soon as possible, I've had the opportunity to continue working at the group at ETH. So I will be developing a completely new version of this kind of from scratch that is much, much more modular. But this will take quite a while. So I would say at the very least 6 months until we can even talk about how the final system looks. And probably going to be next year by the time it is possibly available. Another very common question was, can I have it for X? And now I did kind of prompt those questions, asking what you want to use it for, but I was not prepared for the sheer number of different possibilities. Of course, there's the 6, 7, 8-string guitars in the various row configurations, but there's also bass guitars. Some guy wants this for his cello, for acoustic guitars, jazz guitars. The sheer number of people that reached out to me with different ideas was just amazing. That's kind of also dictated then the decision to go to a very modular system, where we can have just the standard rows as you saw it. It will probably be like one module is one row, but they can also be spread out more, and we can very easily make custom modules for your custom application. So if you don't have a cello and need it bent and spread further apart, that would totally be possible. Also, we're thinking that maybe having a module where you can integrate piezos into the system as well. So it would not have any pickups on the module, but instead just plugs where you can plug in some under-saddle piezo pickups and then insert those into the system as well. This could also be used on acoustic guitars, where you wouldn't have just piezo pickups in the saddles, but also on maybe a couple places on the soundboard. And there may be a magnetic pickup, and that in an arch top would be really cool. Another super common question / request was for this to be usable without a computer directly connected to it. And this is going to require a bit more work, and that's kind of also where some more of the delay comes in. But the idea is to have the option to use it completely untethered from a computer. That would mean that there's an analog output on it. Probably we would still digitize everything, mix it on the FPGA, and then go back to the analog. And the main challenge there is, how do we deal with the presets? How do you program the presets? I think it would be really cool if you could create a preset in the plugin and then save that preset to the guitar. But how that works technically, and if there's maybe an option to also use a phone to control it, that still has to be explored. Another request was to make the whole system open source. And I'm guessing part of this comes from the direction that Cycfi stuff is open source, and we're actually not opposed to it, and we'll most likely be open sourcing the entire hardware as well as the software. So once that is, there will be a link down below. In addition to that, we're also going to release some of the raw audio tracks. That way you can play around with it yourself. So once that is ready, maybe it is when this video comes out, maybe a little bit later, we'll have a link down below to a place where you can download the track from the demo video. It will be kind of the raw 64-channel audio. You will need Reaper. The plugin only runs in Reaper because it needs a 64-channel track, which is not supported in almost any other DAW software. So you will need Reaper. You will have to install our plugin. That's just a simple VST plugin available for Mac and Windows. And then you can play around with it and see what you can come up with. My only condition there is that if you come up with something cool, please do share it with me. Either you can share it publicly or you can just send it to me privately, but I definitely want to hear what is possible, what other people can come up with. Now, fair warning, the software is beta software, or considerably maybe even alpha software. Sometimes it crashes, sometimes there are weird bugs. A lot of the bugs we are aware of already, just have not gotten around to fixing them and will not before we release it. So save often and be patient. And with that, I think I have covered most of the updates that I have for you at this time. If you want to stay up to date with the most recent news, make sure that you sign up to the mailing list. If you filled out the feedback form and left your email there, you are already on the mailing list. And otherwise, if you still want to add your email to the mailing list, I'll have a link down below as well, where you can sign up to it. That's where I'm going to share all the news. And if I have any kind of questions where I want to have additional surveys, those will also be sent out there. And in the meantime, on this channel, the workshop channel, we're going to go back to working on the CNC. I've not forgotten about the upgrade series part. It's taking a while. I've run into some issues, but a new part of that should be out very soon, hopefully. And on the guitar channel, I have new guitar builds that I'm filming, and that will be coming out there as well in the future. They're not going to have crazy electronics like this one, but they should still be really cool. So with that said, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff, and I'll see you next time.